listening to Intro to Apocalypse by Vlad the Inhaler. Hello, listeners. This is Tom Ryan, and you're just in time for True Ghost Stories on Life Omni Radio, WLOR.net. You are at the right place at the right time if you want to hear some really amazing ghost stories and paranormal experiences. So grab yourself a drink and tuck yourselves in. Get comfortable, but get ready to face your fears. Because we are True Ghost Stories, and we are calling out all ghosts. Come out, come out, come out of your homes. Come out from wherever you may roam. Hello, listeners and chatters, and thank you all for being here with us tonight. We here at True Ghost Stories would like to add substance to our show. More questions, more answers, stories, and research. The only way the world is going to know the truth is if we find the truth, and we are not alone. There are far too many witnesses out there with stories to tell, and it's our job to share them. True Ghost Stories' approach is open-minded. We care not only about the living, but for the spiritual world too. And maybe through our journeys we can figure out why they're here and what they want from us. Or perhaps, maybe we can even help a soul cross over. We are True Ghost Stories, and we like to think outside the box. I am Tom Ryan, and I am one of your hosts of True Ghost Stories. And I'd like to say hello to my co-host and fellow spiritual researcher, Mr. Adam Ginsberg.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm very good. I had another opportunity to go to Katie's, that bar and grill I mentioned to you. That is a Long Island historically haunted location.
Yes.
We were there yesterday. We were doing a screening of the original Poltergeist film.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. We had a bunch of people with us. And once again, Brian, who is the proprietor, came downstairs and told everyone who was there a little bit about the history. And there were a number of people who, while they said they were cool while they were there, ended up coming to me later and saying they got very uncomfortable when they went to that specific area of the pub, which was pretty neat. And the other thing is, I pulled up, and I don't know how true these devices are when they're just an app in your phone, but I thought this would be a very neat little thing to mention. To everyone listening who's more learned in these things than I am, I pulled up an EMF app in my phone. I have a Samsung Galaxy S4, and I pulled up one of these EMF readers, and I began to walk around in this area. And again, I'm not super familiar with this equipment. It was ranging on the low end in the, I'm going to say 20s or so. On the high end, I hit like 1,200 a reading on this thing. Yeah. Now, it was very interesting because it would only come up like that in one particular spot, which was kind of near an entrance to this back. I don't want to call it a kitchen because it wasn't, but it was kind of where like the extra cases and kegs and things like that would be. And every time I walked to that one spot, it just would go higher. It would meter off and go higher. And then I'd walk away from that and I would catch 70, 80, 90, 100, things like this. This was supposedly in the more intense area of the bar and grill. But this one spot by this entryway, every time I walked by there, the meter would go higher than the last time when it would stop.
Interesting.
And at one point, it got to about 1,200, and then the movie was ready to start. I said, wow, I don't even know what these numbers mean. I just know this seems really odd.
Yeah, that is. Very. Yeah. I think it's great that they have an EMF app.
What
don't they come up with?
One of these days, we're going to get over there.
Yeah, I'd love to get over there, definitely, to that pub. And not only for the spirits, but for the spirits.
Yes, absolutely, my friend.
So listen, Adam, I would like to introduce you and introduce myself to our tonight's guest, a young lady by the name of Marsha Becker that experienced some serious stuff as far back as 1971. And we're talking about the Amityville period, So There has been a book about it. I believe that her husband authored the book about their experiences.
Mhm.
And I would like to welcome Marsha to the show. Are you there with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, good evening.
Hi, Marsha. Good evening. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for asking me.
This is Tom, and I want to thank you for being on True Ghost Stories. And everyone who's listening, you're on WLR.net. And Marsha, I want to start by basically discussing your experience, which was documented in a book called True Haunting. And I believe that was authored by your husband, Edwin Becker. Becker, is that right?
Yeah, Edwin F. Becker, yes. He did, but he sort of just touched on it. There'll be a new book, True Haunting 2, which will be out probably in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that is more my perspective.
Oh, okay. So the first book, True Haunting, is his perspective on the experience, and True Haunting 2 is your perspective on the experience.
Yes.
Okay,
and our tenants, also our tenants, and 2 of them and his sister, which he did touch on in his book, but there's more detail in the second book.
Now, when you say your tenants, are you telling me that you guys moved out of this house and rented it to someone?
No. It was a 2-flat.
Oh, okay.
Right. And at the time we rented the other apartment, we really didn't know it was haunted.
Okay.
I mean, we knew stuff was going on, but who thinks ghosts, you know?
So tell me, okay, so you guys, were you guys a young couple? Were you,
yes.
Was this, any children?
Our first baby.
So you had a baby. When you moved in, you had a baby?
Yes. Well, when we bought the place, I was actually pregnant.
Okay.
Because in those days, no children, no pets in apartments, so we were being kicked out.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so trying to find a place to live with no money and being pregnant wasn't easy.
Sure.
So we ended up with this rundown, very haunted house.
And the people that you bought it from, no indication from them that there was anything ever?
Not a bit. No disclosure back in those days. We know in our hearts that the real estate man, who was also a friend of the family's, we believe, he knew. He knew the place was not right. And we know the family did too, but there weren't too many family members left. There were a group that had inherited the so-called estate. I mean, it was not much of an estate, but they weren't real close. The one daughter still lived there.
Okay.
But she was not okay.
Marsha.
She was not right.
Hi, Marsha. This is Adam. Were you aware of any history on the building prior to you guys moving in there?
No, not prior to moving in. All we knew was that one family had owned the house from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And what did you find out later?
Well, again, not a lot. This family, originally, we came to believe, from what we could find out, belonged to the local Catholic Church. A very religious family, old world type. But as we started digging and listening to neighbors and so forth, we found out they weren't quite okay. I mean, we found Ouija boards in the house and just a lot of stories about very, very strange behavior. Mm-hmm. We know at least 3 people died in the house. We believe more. Mm-hmm. So it was a very dark place to begin with.
So, do you believe that some of those family members died in that house?
Oh yeah, we know they did. Yeah, at least 3 of them we know for sure did.
And there's records.
Actually, I'm wrong. 4 that we know for sure. There was a suicide and I believe a heart attack. We're not
sure.
So
this is after you started to experience things, Marsha. That you did some research and found out about this.
As much as we could, you have to understand there were no computers back then, no Googling.
Sure.
And what
the
little
town records,
information.
just the public records was all that was available, I would assume, right?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was word of mouth.
Okay.
But on the other hand, people that lived there all their lives or for many years. So they knew each other. People didn't move like we do today.
Sure.
You know, they stuck around.
So the people in the neighborhood knew the history of the house, and they kind of knew what had transpired there.
Exactly. And, you know, I have to say one thing that was a little different for Ed than myself. Being from Chicago, it was very common back then for funerals or people that died to have funerals right in their own homes. Their wakes were there in the living room. You know, to me it was very strange from where I came from, but from Chicago that was normal. So for houses to have a creepy feeling or to find out people died there wasn't that unusual. He just kept reassuring me that I'm just picking up on stuff. I'm a little sensitive, and I was picking up on things. He really tried to logic everything away because no one wants to believe they live in a haunted house. And as hauntings go, most people will tell you, they start off slow. Now, nobody jumps out of the closet and the boogeyman scares you to death. You run out screaming.
Right.
They want to seduce you. They want to keep you there. They want your energy. So things started out very slowly. But
let me ask you a question, Marsha.
Sure.
Prior to this, did you ever have any sort of experiences prior to these activities in the home? Well, I mean, you know, at any other point in your life?
Not with hauntings, no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just little intuition things and through my life and things like that. I don't believe I've ever had an experience with a haunting. I'm fairly positive-minded, so I think if I had met a ghost, I probably would have wanted to sit down and have coffee with them and find out if I could help. So it was more like
funny.
that.
I think I know where Adam's going with this because I kind of had the same question in mind. Did you or your husband have any belief in ghosts or the spiritual world?
I did. I believed
before you moved in.
Yes, before I moved in,
Okay.
I would say yes. I did believe that spirits do exist. And I would say it's not that he didn't believe. It's just that he didn't think that it was a big deal. So what?
Okay.
You know, they're ghosts, they're air. What can they do? So we had never had anything spooky, no. So, otherwise, it was probably, you know, we were living paycheck to paycheck, so moving was not an option.
Right.
We barely got into this place. So this was something that people keep saying, why didn't you leave? Believe me, if we had had an option, we would have been out of there. I would have lived in a tent.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
No.
But there, you know, we had a newborn baby. There was no way we could just live in if it just been us, we would have lived in a car. I didn't care.
What type of activities began to take place when it began to start slowly?
It started immediately.
Oh.
On moving day, I'm one of these people that have to unpack like right away and set the house up immediately. So the boys were bringing in the boxes. I was unpacking them. And I had this prized, I didn't have to make, we eloped. So I really didn't have wedding presents. Mm-hmm. And the couple that I did have, I had this crystal candy dish that I loved. See, that's the thing. They know you. They know your weaknesses. They know what you care about, and that's what they go after. Well, I set this down on the coffee table, and I went back to get something else out of the box, turned back around, and it was on the edge. And I said, no, I didn't do that. But I think I'm tired. You know, I'm a new mom. I've been up all night, and I've been moving, and I'm tired. So I put it back into the middle of the table, turn around again, turn back around, and it's back on the edge. Now, this is crystal. Back in those days, crystal wasn't very strong. So I was like, oh, no. So I got out my grandmother's doily and put that down and put it on there, thinking maybe the floor was not even, or I'd waxed the table too much. I have a bad habit of doing that. So I put it back down. But this was all, and then, every time I would put something that was significant to me or something I used all the time, it would be moved. It'd be in a different place.
Right.
And that's what they start doing. They just start getting on your nerves. That sort of thing.
So, Marsha, so now we know that it began with the displaced items.
Mm-hmm.
What was the height of your experiences what was the most frightening, or what you thought was the climactic type of reveal that you felt these spirits were making themselves known to you?
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit tough. I would have to say that after the attempted exorcism, things escalated. They were angry.
I'm glad you brought up the exorcism, because I saw this on the video. I saw this on YouTube, the video that you guys did, and I saw the exorcism. And just give us a really briefly, how did you find these guys that performed the exorcism? Because I believe, if I read correctly, were they from overseas? Is that correct?
No, one was. No, well, this is going to sound really ridiculous, but I'm complaining to my husband, and he flippantly said to me, because he just didn't want to hear it, he had to go to work, and I don't blame him, and I'm whining about ghosts and spooky things. So he flippantly says to me, look in the yellow pages. Well, I was one of these people that took everything, okay, fine. I looked in the yellow pages. I didn't get the joke. Yeah, I know. A little gullible and naive, to say the least. So I look in the yellow pages, and sure enough, there are two of them.
Wow.
The first one that came over, they were well-meaning people, and we think one of them may have been gifted because she was pointing out things in the house she couldn't have known. They pretended to do this stuff and walked around the house and said, okay, now everything's clean and good and, happy and all that. And just as they said that, the phone comes flying off the table, slams on the floor, a door slams. They couldn't get down those stairs fast enough. I mean, I really thought they were going to hurt themselves.
So this all happened right in front of the entire team?
Yes, right in front of the entire, I guess. They didn't call them a team then, but yes.
Right.
So I called the second number, and turns out to be Joseph DeLuise, which was a famed psychic. I didn't know this because I wasn't familiar with that world, and I didn't know the people in it, but he apparently was fairly acclaimed. We were just lucky. He had a feeling about my call. He didn't talk to me, but his secretary told him my story. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, we were very fortunate because they called back. They sent over Tom Valentine, who had written a book, or I think maybe he was still writing a book, about Joseph's life and experiences. And they investigated us completely. Make sure we're not alcoholics or druggies or, wackos of any kind. They really, really did a thorough investigation. In fact, I started to feel a little irritated. Mm-hmm. They're getting in my personal space here, asking some questions that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, so they finally did come over. I'm kind of giving you the Reader's Digest version, but they did come over. Joseph knew from the beginning that there was something there that he was not capable of dealing with. So he called in an exorcist, William Darrell Davis, who was from England.
Right.
So the two of them, an exorcist and a medium, boy, this was not oil and water. It was not a good mix.
Well, just let me. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to let the viewers know that the entire exorcism is the footage of the exorcism is on YouTube. So
yes, unfortunately, not the entire. A lot of the footage was so-called lost.
Oh, okay.
Nobody could find it, but
I
a
did
good
see a
deal
lot
of
of footage on there. There's a good amount of it on there.
Yeah, there were something like 3 hours. I may be a little off on that. It may be more, but They were there all day filming, and they kept calling us saying, we can't cut this down anymore. In a day when the news was at 30 minutes, and I'm going to get it wrong, he's going to be so mad at me, I think it was 6 or 7 minutes we got, that the president didn't get that in those days. Right. So it was amazing, and they said their boards just lit up. So they played it again. I think they played it maybe at least 3 times, which, again, very unusual for those days. It just, people, they did a very nice job. We thought they were going to make fun of us and humiliate us, but they did not. They took it seriously in a respectful manner. It was done very well. Of course, Carol Simpson, you don't get any better than that. Sure. She just was amazing. And such a big-time reporter coming to the house. I was like, I was starstruck, for the minute she walked in. But everybody was frightened. The sound man was picking up sounds. Later, we played back we were playing tapes at the same time we were recording. We played back our tapes, which only when Ed started doing the book did he actually listen to all the tapes, because they just brought back such bad memories and feelings. We didn't want to face it. There was clearly a child calling out for Mama on there. There was lots of banging, lots of door closing, knocking.
Did you ever see anything, or was it more of things flying around?
No, we did.
Or no. You saw entities?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, we saw a full-bodied apparition, both of us, an older woman that just kind of disappeared into the wall. Ed saw her several times, and I saw her once with him. He called me out, said, "Come, I want you to see this." And I looked down, and she just kind of smiled, and, she looked right at us. And if we hadn't known that she walked through the door into nothing, we would have thought she had wandered in from the street. She just looked like anybody else.
It was that clear.
It was that clear. So we found out much later that's unusual, but, we didn't know that.
So, Marsha, I assume you guys don't live there anymore, right?
Oh, no. We lasted almost 2 years.
Okay.
Again, a very kind of not spooky, but a paranormal type story of how we got out of there, but that will be in True Haunting 2.
Okay. So. Okay. But you did now. Just for my curiosity, did you sell it to someone, or?
Yeah, really.
And did you give full disclosure?
I got full disclosure. I can't. Yeah, I had to sign a piece of paper and everything. I swear to God. That's another crazy story. We're just full of them. You won't need like 2 hours.
I can imagine. Now, are you in contact with the current tenants and owners?
Oh, no. No. From what we understand, and I can't verify this, it's empty. The bank owns it. That's what we heard. We don't have any way.
The people you sold. The people you sold it to mysteriously disappeared.
The people. No, actually, we never sold it. We gave it away. We never sold it. We gave it away to the real estate man with full disclosure. We told him everything about the house, everything, and he was so excited. He wanted a haunted house so bad, and we thought he was nuts. And so Ed signed what's called a quick claim deed and handed the house over for $10. We never even got the $10, but we didn't care.
Wow.
And the escrow and everything, we just got the heck out of there. We didn't want anything to do with that house.
Wow, so this was driving off in the night with the rain coming down and running for your lives? Or?
Just about.
Wow.
You're pretty close. I'm one of these very neat packers, and I label everything. I know, I'm just ridiculous. But back then, I was throwing stuff in paper bags. I didn't care. I just wanted to get out of there. So it did, and we were warned very clearly by Joseph to not take anything we didn't bring there. anything that was there when we got there, because there were a lot of stuff, little odds and ends left over. Mostly Ed had a junk man come and take everything away, but there was still stuff in the basement, and there was still stuff laying around that, I use everything. So I figure I'll just use it. Not thinking, not knowing. We didn't know anything back then. So, we were walking blindly.
Part of your challenge with this was that it was quote unquote back then, and there wasn't as much help, and there wasn't as many resources, correct?
Not at all. I mean, if you told someone you have a haunted house, you didn't talk about that stuff. And because people would label you crazy. It's not like today where people want to know.
Yeah.
And people are opening up, which is a good thing. It's a good thing people are opening up. Instead of walking around. I can't tell you how many years I spent living in fear that they were going to come find me. Not knowing that they probably can't leave that space. But I didn't know that then. And I felt like they hated me so much from what I experienced and what they did to me in that house that they were going to come find me. And so, for many, many, many years, I was afraid to go to sleep at night.
Were you physically attacked?
Yes, I was. And so, after Joseph told me they can't touch you. But he was learning too. We were all learning. And every experience is different, because every ghost is different. Spirit, call them whatever you want. Yes, and I was actually put the baby down for her afternoon nap. That was my time to finally take a bath. There were no showers there. And this old house, old claw-footed tub, and I was finally getting my daily bath. Right away, here's a young girl, and you feel vulnerable anyway, and you have to leave the door open in case the baby starts crying. It just was uncomfortable to start with, and I get out of the bathtub, but I felt like something was watching me, and I felt very uncomfortable, to say the least. And all of a sudden, a hand comes down on my shoulder very hard, and I was froze. I don't know if I froze or it froze me, but I froze.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing someone scream, and it turned out it was me. So I grabbed a towel and wrapped that around me and ran. First thing I thought it was the baby. So I run to her. She's fine, of course. And because the house had been kind of blessed, because the priest couldn't get out of there fast enough either. And my husband and his family are Catholic, so that was their belief, was to have the house blessed. We had
Are you religious? Are you religious, Marsha?
Oh, very much so. I'm very religious. I'm very spiritual. And if it hadn't been for my faith, I would not have made it through that in one piece.
Have you had a paranormal experience since you left the house?
Yes, but my secrets, yes. See, here's the thing. Once you experience something like that, you become so hypersensitive to it. Ed and I can walk into any building at any given time, and within minutes, we can tell you if it's occupied.
Wow.
Now,
we actually have friends who make us go house hunting with them and say, "Is this house clean?"
Just to see if you can pick something up. Just to see if you can pick something up. No, they want you to go with them just to see if you pick something up. They know not to buy.
Yes.
Okay.
We did that we had to move into Springfield from Branson because of my husband's heart condition. He needed to be near a trauma center. Okay. And so we went house hunting around here. Found the perfect house right across the street from the hospital. Old homes, which I like. Believe it or not, I still like old homes. And we walked in, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, a little paint. I'm decorating in my head, trying to figure out if it's, worth the price. Within minutes, we both met back into the living room and told the real estate woman, thank you, but we're leaving. Now. I don't know if it was particularly a bad one, but I don't want any of them.
Right.
So, well, I've been there, did that, not going back to it. So I said, okay, see ya.
Yeah. You know, I find it interesting that you've always felt a little bit of a connection to the paranormal. Where did that start for you at a young age? Where did you? I mean, was it before you met your husband, or was it?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Probably my grandmother's. You know, thinking back, when you're growing up, you always hear stories. My grandmothers were the type that lived in small little itty-bitty towns in Texas, and no doctors, no anything. So if you got sick, they went outside, picked a bunch of green stuff, and did something to it, and it was god-awful, but you got healed.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know. Maybe we're born that way. I've always been sensitive nature. Mm-hmm. I get my feelings hurt easily. I'm just, I know if I like people or don't like people immediately.
Right. Okay.
And I get a real sense about people. His family always had the old world stories, about their houses and stuff. I think we just grew up taking it as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Mm. So you believe that would I be correct in saying that you believe that a significant part of the afterlife consists of spirits that are left behind and wandering the earth with us?
I think that there are many different reasons. I think that some choose to stay behind for one reason or another. They have attachments to people, things, whatever. They make that decision. They decided to stay. I believe some do not even realize they're dead. They may have died in a traumatic way. They're wandering, trying to figure things out, and of course, they never do. I think some are kept here. If they messed around with things in their life they shouldn't have, well, that may be the result of it. I don't have all the answers, but I do believe in those types. I'm sure there are many others. It's probably as many types as there are people because they used to be people.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they were mean in life, they're going to be mean in death.
Right.
So you're going to get all kinds. We had 5 in that house, and they were all different.
Marsha, you said you had children at the time there, correct?
Yes, a baby, yes.
How old?
She was 3 months old when we moved in.
Oh, and when you left, she was too young to recognize any of these things. I'm curious in being that she was too young to recognize that.
Right.
Obviously, with books being written and such, how do you raise a child in terms of their spiritual ideologies, perhaps, and religion and such after going through something that devastating? I mean, how do you?
Let me tell you,
it's got to be a slightly different viewpoint, correct?
Yes, but what it did for me personally, everybody has a different reaction to these things. Mine just made my faith even stronger. So I raised my children the same way I was raised. I took them to different churches, introduced them to different religions, but I wanted them to make up their own minds, what they felt drawn to, what they felt comfortable with. But yes, they were raised in a very spiritual home, in a very religious home. Our faith is very, very strong, whether we go to church every Sunday or not. So they grew up hearing that, but they also grew up hearing about the house. Right. I didn't want them to be dumb. If they ever ran into an experience, they would be better prepared.
And have they?
But we're a very open family anyway. Secrets are our style.
So have they have they experienced any paranormal incidents?
Not too much.
Okay.
Just like maybe a premonition or a dream or something like that. I think that's pretty much everybody.
Okay.
So I don't think so. It's not a subject we necessarily talk about a lot, but they know that they're welcome to talk about it.
Okay.
If something has worried them or they just are curious. Our granddaughters also know the complete story. They have read the book. They have seen the videos. We did an episode of Paranormal Witness for their season finale in season 2.
Okay.
So they've watched that. In fact, they're the reason we did it, because they're sci-fi freaks, and they're like, oh, you guys have to.
Right.
So we did. It was interesting. It was fun. And I will say that Paranormal Witness did try hard to stay close to the story.
Yeah.
It's TV, after all, and they need to make it entertaining, so not everything wasn't necessarily in the right order.
Yeah.
But they did stick to the story, and it didn't get crazy. There was no blood coming down the walls or, creepy things.
Dogs talking. I got another question for you, and I also want to mention to all of our listeners, you're listening to True Ghost Stories on WLOR.net. You got Adams, Ginsberg, and Tom Ryan. And we have Marsha Becker on the line with us, and we're discussing her experiences back in 1971 in a home that she used to live in. If anybody wants to call in, we will accept a call in. If you have any questions for Marsha, the number is 508-717-8758. One more time, that's 508-717-8758. So, Marsha, here's my question. Has Edwin experienced anything paranormal since leaving the home as well? Because it sounds to me like he was more the skeptic in the relationship, or at least more of the, maybe
more
not skeptic,
logical.
but right, a little bit more, more willing to deny things than to embrace them. So has he experienced anything since you've left, or how has it changed basically his life? What was he doing when you guys moved into this home? What was was he a salesman? Did he work at a factory? What did he do, and how did this change his life and change his experiences?
Now, he was in the new world of computers. So back then, it was the new world. Boy, I'm aging us big time.
Gotcha.
He is a very logic-minded person by nature. But, and the fact that he had to leave that house every day, leave his young wife and baby there to face all this every day, the only way he could deal with that was to go into denial. Now, this is something nobody is going to believe, but I swear to you, I don't lie, and this is the truth. He never has heard, he's heard bits and pieces, but he's never really heard my experiences until he decided to do the second book, which really was me. I was on his case. I thought it would not only help people, but it would help me. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be therapeutic. Turns out, not so much. Going and reliving that stuff, putting my head back there was a lot harder than I imagined.
Yeah, but are you saying that you didn't tell? He didn't
want to hear it. He didn't want to hear it.
At the time that it happened, he didn't want to hear it.
He didn't want to hear it. Nope. And I understand that. I never got upset about that because, and I know people are going to not get that, but he had to go out every day. He had to earn our living. We had to pay our bills. We had to buy groceries and diapers and all that stuff. So the world continued on. It doesn't stop.
Marsha,
yeah.
With these things beginning to happen, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like they were happening a lot more to you because you were physically in the house more often. I'm curious.
Yes.
I'm curious, being that we're talking about the early 70s, and as you had said, people would think you're crazy and whatever, et cetera. Were you ever, I don't want it to sound this way, but were you ever finding yourself being carted off somewhere to be checked out and things like that? You know what I mean by that?
I know what you're saying. No, I guess they tell me I'm a pretty strong person. I never saw myself that way. but it must be, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten through it, other than the fact that I do have a very strong faith.
I'm going to interject there. I'm going to interject there, okay?
Is that Edwin?
You talked about being carted off.
All right. So for the audience, this is Edwin Becker.
Okay.
This is the author, Edwin Becker of True
Yes.
You're going to hear a slightly different story next week, but
here we go.
we took so much abuse, okay, that when you'll hear the story of how our house got blessed and how that just went into a mess.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to the rectory to try to get the priest to come back and complete the blessing. I was an altar boy in my youth, so I knew what a house blessing was and how it should be performed. And he didn't do that. He ran out. He got scared, and you'll hear the story next week. But I went to the rectory, and I sat with him. And now, mind you, Marsha and I had been called crazy, disturbed, imagining things. I could have wrote haunted house on the front of the building, and people would have laughed at me, and the city probably would have fined me for defacing property. So when the priest said to me, I can't help you, and I said, Father, I donate to the church. We're good parishioners. All I'm asking you is to bless my house. And he said he didn't feel it was necessary. And he forced me to use the G word, and I said, Father, we have ghosts. And at that point, he smirked at me, and he said, you and your wife should have your heads examined.
Yeah, we were told that a few times.
Okay. Now, at that point, as a young man, I had a very short fuse. And although I was brought up Reverend Catholic, I blasted him. And so much so that he said, get out of the building. You're banned from the church grounds. We don't want you as parishioners anymore. We had taken enough abuse. I mean, the abuse was nonstop, relentless.
Yeah. I need to say this. That was one thing that was very strong, was that Ed was always angry. He was always mad. That's what they do to you. Mm-hmm. They change you. Mm-hmm. And you have to fight to stay yourself. It's a battle. And so we watched the others in that house change.
Who's the others?
That our tenants, his sister, we watched anyone who lived there change.
Mm-hmm. Change their attitude.
And I mean drastically change.
Change their attitude, change their behavior.
Their personalities. Yes. Oh, yes. And, I mean, everybody got so morbid. And it was, I'm walking about thinking, am I the only one who's, and I started to feel that way. I felt I was the only one who didn't want to go jump off a bridge or kill somebody or,
I'm curious, Marsha, are you guys still in touch with your former tenants?
Yes. Well, partly, yes.
And have they come out of this okay? Or are they still suffering the consequences?
If I could interject, a most unusual thing happened. After I tried to contact everybody, and I failed. And after I wrote the book, one of my tenants contacted me. Mm-hmm. Now, we held him at a tenant-landlord relationship so that even though Marsha wound up getting closer than I wanted her to, and she didn't tell me, you can't evict your friends, so you don't want to make your tenants your friends.
Right. So
I knew very little about what went on, and when he read my book, he contacted me, and he was actually on the Paranormal Witness episode with us. Right. 42 years later, he told us what happened to him and his wife in that building, and destroyed their marriage. The occurrences were incredible. They were a lot different than ours, and it caused me to write the second book, because I saw the common thread that it affected the woman that lived there, the daughter. She was crazy as a loon. And then it affected our first tenants. It affected his wife terribly. She became tormented. Then it affected my sister, who never recovered.
No.
And then it affected my last tenant, who was a female. It seemed like it ran through the first floor, all the women especially. And we wanted to know part of it. I mean, once we moved out, we hadn't gone back.
We don't look back.
We never looked back. Yeah.
How large of a building was this?
How large?
Yeah, how large was the building?
It was a two-flat duplex up and down.
Right.
An old Chicago duplex in a neighborhood of 1890s.
Right.
You know, where I grew up in Chicago, so the chills and the goosebumps and the things, I grew up with that as a child, so I didn't see anything initially unusual about it. You know, we have houses where they once held wakes in the front room. Yeah, pick a house in the neighborhood that someone hadn't died in. I mean, that would be a miracle.
Right.
Did your tenants?
When I wrote the book, it didn't take 3 months for one of the previous people who lived on that block to contact me. She lives in Miami, and she said she lived down the block and she had similar problems. So.
Wow.
Did your tenants last in there the 2 years that you folks lived there?
No. They in fact, 42 years later, we found out that his wife wanted out after 90 days. They moved in March, and she was bugging him to get the hell out in April or in June, and which we didn't know. And then she actually left, and he told us she went to see her mother, and she really didn't. There's a whole story behind that that's in my second book. My sister also only lasted there about 5 months, and she disappeared literally into the night. So my brother-in-law called us and said, do we know where she is? And we had no idea. She just left, and she was tormented. And
you said your sister never recovered?
No,
she
never recovered.
She was diagnosed with schizophrenia, epilepsy, bipolar disorder, possessed. She alienated herself from the whole family.
There were no signs of this before her encounter.
No.
Oh no. She went down a dark road, and she wound up actually an unclaimed body in Cook County morgue. And fortunately, they do their research, and they don't like to bury Jane Does. So they finally contacted a member of the family, and we were able to give her a proper burial.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm going to get off. It's my wife's time. But I'll let her come back on when it's my time.
Thank you, Ed. And what I'd like to mention...
Thank you, Ed.
What I'd like to mention to the audience, what I was going to save as a surprise, but Ed, spoiler alert, but Ed is going to he's going to be on with us next Monday to follow up about the second book and give us, his perspective on exactly what happened and, what he experienced. But, Marsha, it's been great having you on tonight. I mean, I really love the stories, and I love your passion about getting the story out there. And I have to say that it was definitely some very interesting experiences that you had, to say the least. And
much more than what we covered. Yes.
Yeah, and I love watching the videos, the video on YouTube that you guys did share with Carol Simpson from NBC, and the whole special that they did on you guys, and the exorcism that I got to see on there. So I think I still have a ton more questions. I'm sure Adam does too, but we have to get ready to wrap tonight, and we're going to take it up next week. But I hope you'll be available to crash your husband's interview at the end of the night.
Absolutely. And if I could really quick say, if people call, there's two, www.truehaunting.com. True Haunting has its own website and lots of information on there, or Ed's website, which is www.edwinbecker.com. If you sign up for that, you will get noticed when the new book is coming out, and also be eligible for a drawing for signed copies. So
great. And where do we get the book, Marsha? Is that on Amazon.com or something?
It's on Amazon and various bookstores, but mainly Amazon.
I'm having some problems with my Facebook, but I think Adam or Sherri, maybe one of you guys could share it on the True Ghost Stories page for all of our listeners. We try to do that for everybody, Marsha, and share their links on there. And if not, come onto our True Ghost Stories page yourself, and you can actually share it there, and then we'll just we'll share it from your post.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been great talking to you, and we hope to hear a little bit from you next week as well.
Oh, okay. Good night.
Good night, Marsha. Thank you.
Good night. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. Again, like, I don't know. I get this whole Amityville feeling from this thing. I love these.
I got an Amityville feeling from that too.
Right?
I got the same feeling.
Yeah. I dig it because it's weird because I had an experience that was not paranormal, but a friend of mine bought a home in the Jersey City Heights, probably about 15 years ago, and he couldn't reach the attic from the hallway. He didn't have a ladder, and he couldn't get up there. He was a shorter guy, and he asked me if I could reach up there, and I jumped on his hallway railing to the staircase. I jumped up into the attic, and I found all these old photos of these families, basically from Germany. They were part of a German-American association. They were migrating over and forming this neighborhood. But when I saw it, it just reminded me that you have absolutely no idea what the history of some of these properties are that are right around the corner from you. And like the Beckers seem to experience, you buy a house that you figure is going to be a low-cost house for you that you could have as a starter home or build a family in. And the next thing you know, it's got a history that you know nothing about, and it's becomes a haunting.
That whole thing here with tenants and 30 years later somebody describing, and the way that Ed just unveiled all of these different experiences happening within the home, or I guess the homes, all under the same roof at the same time, and everybody's having a unique yet similar experience is pretty wild. I know how we're really, I guess in a sense, we're kind of ball busters when it comes to this stuff with the guests, and really, we want, the truth and whatnot. But I got to tell you something. Listening to the two of them talk, you know what? I could feel it. That I don't think that these people are playing around. Who wants to be driven from their home with a young baby and all that going on, literally giving it away, to escape.
Total loss on the home, right? Mm-hmm. Right. No, I agree. Yeah, it was, and just to repeat again, next week we're going to have Edwin Becker on there, and he was the author of True Haunting and True Haunting 2, which we're going to discuss in more detail next week, which would be really interesting. I'm very curious to see what his perspective is on everything, and I find it interesting, and we have to follow up on this next week, Adam. Don't let me forget this, but the fact that Marsha explained that she was experiencing things that she did not share with Edwin at the time because he did not want to hear it.
Right.
Now I want to follow up with that next week and see at what point in time did he realize that, what his wife was experiencing was important, and maybe he was going through the same thing, and maybe there was a case of denial between the two of them that they didn't get to share the experience at the time and, really get into what was happening to them,
Oh, absolutely. Guys, you can go to the website truehaunting.com, and I'm sure from there, first off, you can read all about the book, all about Ed and Marsha, and I'm sure you can make your way to Amazon and wherever else they have it up for sale, so you can get a copy. But more importantly, there is a second book coming very soon, so all of this is very timely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm actually looking at goodreads.com, and they have True Haunting there for sale, and it's getting 4 out of 5 stars, so it looks like it's a really good read. But with that being said, Mr. Ginsberg, I think it's time to wrap up another night with your sexy voice.
Thank you, sir. Well, do you ever feel like you're not alone? Do you ever feel like someone or something is near you? Have you felt touched, or that something has brushed up against you? Do you hear voices? Do you have vivid dreams of dead loved ones? Do you see shadow people? What are they? Who are they? An angel or a demon? Or just someone reaching out? We believe someone or something is reaching out. We want to tell the world the truth. Our experiences are not a figment of our imagination. They are things that walk the earth that are unknown to us. We want to find out what they are. We want to share it with all of you, and so do they. We want to tell our stories and their stories. We are True Ghost Stories. So tune in next time. We have more great guests in store for you. Listen to us both, Adam Ginsberg and Thomas Ryan, your hosts, for a frightfully entertaining hour of the best true ghost stories ever heard. Until then, have a great week, everyone, and a great night. Happy ghost hunting.
Done his share of losing faith, but nothing else looked right. Time that catches up with you, if only in your dreams. Wake up with a coin in hand and hear the ravens scream. Hear the shadows of the night. You can run, you can hide. In the shadows of the night. You can do. You lose your life. Somewhere in another place, so many miles apart, he runs away from what's to come and cries out with his heart, following that highway, not sure of where to go, looking up ahead of him. He sees the joining road. He doesn't see the stop sign there. No time to turn away. The ravens perched up on that wreck, yelling, I want you up this day. In the shadows of the night, you can run, you can hide. In the shadows of the night, there's no time, no time you can buy. No. Kicking and screaming, stretching and beating just to stay alive. Dealing and stealing, cheating and dealing, no place to lie. Begging and bleeding, barely just breathing, the end of the road is near. The end of the road is near. Tell me, what do you fear?
That was Shadows of the Night by Ronnie Barr. You were listening to True Ghost Stories. See you next Monday.